My name's Dave from Golden Eagle Brewery. So Golden Eagle Brewery was formed in 2010 by myself. Started out contract brewing and we now have our own premises on Rickerton Road right here in Christchurch. We make roughly around 10 different beers. So today we brought along 4 of our beers just to show you how the styles look, the different flavours and the aromas, and talk a little bit about each beer and how it might match with different foods. So the first beer we're going to show you today is our South Island Pale Ale. This beer was my first beer as a commercial brewer. Prior to that, it was my first beer when I was a home brewer. It's a 5.5% alcohol pale ale, so it's reasonably hoppy, but not over the top like a lot of IPAs. It's got a nice malt character and it's fairly easy drinking. So the first thing to notice with this beer, it's a nice pale amber colour. Pours beautifully with a nice white head there, and the carbonation is relatively low. The reason we like to keep the carbonation quite low with these beers is it helps with the flavour. It's quite aromatic, and we use a variety of New Zealand hops in this, so the ingredients are all Canterbury malts and all South Island New Zealand hops. The hops that really stand out are the Nelson Sauvin and the Waka, so they're quite fruity on the nose. So in terms of flavour with this beer, the fruitiness comes out as well in the flavour. So if you're going to match this with some foods, you're going to match it with sort of savoury flavours. One of my favourites, hard cheeses, English type cheeses, so cheddars. They really match with this quite well. Or if you think sort of like a ploughman's lunch, this would go really well with that kind of meal. Our second beer is Solo Lupulus Metamorphic. This beer we built and designed it around an IPA for the New Zealand market. A lot of IPAs are really sort of hop forward. Some varied, like American IPAs are typically very hop forward, very little malt. English IPAs have a good balance of malt and hops. With this one, we've used a single New Zealand hop called Pacific Jade, and we've married that with a nice sort of sweet malt background. So just to give it a little bit of difference, and as I say, we've made it a New Zealand IPA. Again, we use 100% Canterbury malt. The Pacific Jade hop that we're using is a New Zealand hop as well. We've not gone for a big, overwhelming hop character. We tried to sort of bring out the hop character as more in flavour rather than in aroma. So as the beer pours, it's quite a darker amber than our previous beer, the Pale Ale. And that's from the sweeter malts that we use, a little bit of Munich malt in there and a little bit of Vienna malt. So it gives a nice malt character to the beer. And as we say, the hops that we use, the Pacific Jade, there's not a huge aroma from those hops, but the small bit of aroma you do get is quite citrusy, sort of like orange, almost like orange zest, and that marries through into the flavours as well. This beer you would probably match to probably stronger foods, sort of like chicken dishes or going into sort of the lighter red meat dishes. This beer would go quite well with those. And because it's a little bit sweeter in malt character as well, it goes well quite good with desserts. So you could marry this also somewhere where you would use a dessert wine. So rather than a dessert wine, give this beer a go to marry up with certain sweet dishes as well. And here we have our Big Yank. Big Yank is an American styled IPA, pretty big beer, 7.5% alcohol. It's our currently biggest beer in our range. Big on alcohols, big on flavour, big on hops. It's all about sort of the demonstration of how you can push those flavours out. It's a style that's originated obviously in England with the IPA style, but the Americans have changed things up and started using big, bold, aromatic hops. That is what we're using here. So we have American hops imported for us. This beer is 100% American hops. As with all our beers, the malt in this beer is from Canterbury. So we prefer to use Canterbury malts just because of their aroma and flavours and the freshness that we get. So you can see it pours, again, a slightly dark amber colour, but the malt that we've used, as I mentioned, the Canterbury malts that we've used, we've got an American styled malt which actually pulls back the flavour of those malts a little bit just to let those hops shine through. So the aroma from those beautiful American hops we get is really soft fruit aromas like peach, nectarines, and it's really all about aroma and flavour. So it's bursting with those beautiful aromas. Because of the strength of this beer and the aromatics, it's quite difficult to match this with just standard foods. I would probably say this one matches best with spicy foods, so maybe going towards Thai curries, Indian curries. Really works well with those foods. Of the strong, bold flavours in this and the alcohol and the citrus flavours, It really cuts through the spiciness of curries and spicy dishes. Really works well with those. And our last beer today from Golden Eagle Brewery is our Coalface Stout. So we've left this beer to the last of the 4 beers that we've shown you. As you would do with a stout, or for me anyway, you kind of leave the stout as more like a dessert, kind of like an end of session beer. They're big, generally sort of bold beers, very flavoursome. Working away from one of these beers with a lighter beer, you wouldn't appreciate them. In terms of appreciating the flavours of this beer, it's kind of like I say, it's more like a dessert beer as well. So this beer came about, again, right from sort of my homebrewing days through into my range quite early on. It's another one like the South Island Pale Ale, which is sort of close to my heart, and it's just sort of feels like part of the family now. Again, we're using Old Canterbury malts. But in this one, there's a lot of dark malts, so light chocolate, dark chocolate, roast malts. There's quite a lot of caramel malt in there as well. So it's really a big mashup of sweet and delicious flavoured malts. One thing you'll notice about this beer as it pours, all stouts tend to be dark, but this beer, this particular stout is, I would say, probably one of the darkest stouts on the market in New Zealand. So we like to heap those flavours in. Being a stout, not big on aromas, it's all about the malts. So we use a couple of English hops variety in there. So there's a Fuggles hop and an East Kent Goldings hop. And they just give those slight earthy flavours, which we like to marry up with this beautiful malt profile. Food matching wise, again, it's big, bold flavours. But if you're going to use this beer, it's got to be dessert beer. It's going to go really nice with sort of sticky chocolate puddings, anything with that chocolate in. It's got a lot of nice coffee and chocolate flavours within those malts, and that really, really marries up well with those desserts. So there we are, the 4 beers that we brought along for you today. A little bit of an insight into each one. The 4 beers, as well as the rest of our range, are available nationwide in bars and restaurants and supermarkets, but you'll find them here also at the Twisted Hop, along with their excellent homemade beers. Thank you ever so much for watching. I'm Dave from Golden Eagle Brewery, and I hope you enjoy our beers when you get to try them.